So I went to a private high school. It was kind of one of those nerdy schools that had you wear uniforms. I wore a coat and tie almost every day. And the trousers were limited. You could wear some traditional khaki style trousers in a beige or navy color, or you had gray worsted wool trousers. Now, the gray worsted wool trousers, the problem was the fashion back then was pleats. And the idea is that pleats afford the wearer of the pants more comfort, which is normally a good thing. But on one day, my sophomore year of high school, the pleats proved to be problematic. It was the case that I had a crush on a girl named Allison Myers. And Mr. Teal, who was in charge of our chemistry class, paired Allison Myers and I up for a lab day. And that was very exciting to me. And the problem is when you're a teenager, you get a lot of involuntary erections. It's constant and it's very embarrassing. And you imagine that that's what life is like, always going to be like. And it's not. I mean, now I would love to have some involuntary erections. I'd be very proud of them. But back then, they were a nightmare. And so when I heard that I was getting paired up with Allison Myers, I got very excited. I got aroused. I got an erection. And I thought, what am I going to do? I'm stuck with her we're working close proximity. I'm going to be exposed. She's going to see me. I mean, this is terrible. So my solution, the only thing I could think to come up with was the lab experiment was conducted on this kind of table. It was big. It had this thick industrial, like black chemical resistant tabletop material. I don't know what it was. And then underneath it, you had all the drawers and stuff for the supplies, like the beakers and stands and things like that. Any rate, my plan was to position my body up against that tabletop, that lab tabletop, and I would conceal my involuntary erection beneath it, right? So I'm going to kind of hit about the level of my navel or so, kind of tuck the erection down, and I'll just have to make some excuse to try to make it look as plausible as, for the lab. And it was. I went the whole lab, and the erection never went down. And every time I needed to make a lab recording, or I needed to get something else, maybe a Bunsen burner or something beneath the tabletop, I just kind of awkwardly, instead of standing back from the table, would stay pressed up against it and would kind of bend laterally left, to the side. And I thought, well, it's a little awkward, but other people probably don't notice because they're doing their own lab stuff. And Allison may just think I'm kind of weird, but I'd rather she think I just have clumsy body mechanics than for her to see the erection. So we went for the lab. I don't know, it's around an hour, something like that. And at the end of the hour, I finally started to kind of soften a little bit. And I thought, I would say if I put it on a percentage basis, I was about a level of 100% erect for most of it. And when it got down to about a 50, I thought, okay, maybe I can afford a look. Now I can kind of discreetly look and see what's going on. And I can kind of get a perspective on what Allison may have, see if I pulled this thing off. Well, when I looked down, I discovered there was a horrible realization. Somehow I had been so afraid. I'd been so confused. I think there was some disruption to my sense of proprioception on where body parts were, how I was registering those sensations in my body. I really could have sworn that I had kind of positioned myself in a satisfactory way so that the tabletop was kind of hitting me around the navel. Everything was concealed. In fact, what had happened was I had pressed myself up and it had hit just below the erection, kind of where the testicles are. And essentially the tabletop has served as a kind of platform, a kind of pedestal for my testicles and my erection, which was made hyper evident because of the pleats in these nerdy worsted wool trousers and I had boxer shorts on at the time, no tidy whities, nothing to really conceal it. It was very anathema. It's very counter. It's the worst possible clothing options I could have had under the circumstances. If I had had tidy whities or something, I could have tucked the erection up under the elastic, or at least the tension of the white fabric on the tidies whities would have bore down. But I thought, I thought boxer shorts were cool and adult, but they acted like a tent. They fluffed up along with the pleat. And I realized I could not have drawn more attention to this thing had I tied a balloon around it and sung a song and created an anthem for it. It was the case that standing up against the table was the worst thing I could have done. At least I could have, if I had pulled away, I could have constantly given her my back. Maybe she thought I didn't like her, given her a cold shoulder, something like that. But no, that was not the case. And she had to work around, and to her credit, I think this speaks well to her character. She never made me aware that she saw. She never giggled. She never made me feel embarrassed. And to my knowledge, she never told anyone else either. It was impossible that she could not have noticed. But it was a small class. My class was 35 students. And it is not if she had told somebody, it would have gotten back to me. Somehow somebody would have got back to me. Hey, Richard, I heard you popped a boner with Allison Myers in lab class, smooth move, something like that. And none of that ever happened. So it was humiliating, but she had the class and integrity not to embarrass me. So that's my story. And I tell it because that is kind of indicative, I think, of kind of how my whole dating life was all through high school and college. It was awkward. It was clumsy. It was ham-fisted. I wasn't one of the cool kids. And that story sort of exemplifies the lack of coolness. And I just thought I would share that with you so you had a better sense of who I am. When I leave these fragrance reviews, you never get a sense of who I am. That's a story, true story, nothing embellished. That's a little bit about me. All right, very good, very good. I hope you have a good evening, and take care. Bye-bye.